Hey everyone, I'm Evan Tank, and for the next 10 or so minutes, I'm going to talk about some of the kind of high-level considerations that we take when designing digital products. So think of this as kind of like a quick crash course on Product Design 101. First, what's a digital product? So this one's easy. You guys all know this. It's all the apps that we have on our phones. It's the tools that we use at work every day to get our job done. Some of them we love, some of them we hate. Some of them are easy to use, some are really frustrating, and we don't want to use them anymore after 2 minutes. And there's a reason for that, but we'll get back to that in a second. First, let's talk about what designers need to consider when designing a digital product. So these are probably two familiar terms for you, but I'm going to start by breaking down two of the most common terms when talking about the digital product design space, and that's user interface and user experience. So we talk about user interface, we're talking about literally what the person's seeing on the screen. It's focusing heavily on the look and feel of the product. So this can be anything from the fonts, the layouts, the colors, the patterns of the app, any interaction design. So what happens when I press a button, what happens when a screen transitions into the next one, and style guides like, do the buttons have rounded corners? Do they have sharp edges? All these decisions are what user interface designers are making every day. And if you're truly dedicated to your craft and you have enough time, building out any animations in the app, but that doesn't happen often. So an example of an app that has a really nice looking UI is the Hulu app. It has kind of great imagery, this full screen photography, nice colors. When you transition to categories, it makes a nice animation. There's a nice like full screen frame around it that changes colors. So the UI designers definitely paid close attention to detail when they were building out this app. But the thing is, when you try to use it, it's kind of frustrating to use sometimes. See some head nods, that's good. It's hard to find things. It's kind of difficult to navigate unless you search for something, but to search for something you have to go all the way to the top and then over. It's just kind of a pain. So it's a beautiful app, but it's a frustrating one to use, and these frustrations are what we consider part of the user experience of the app. So when we say user experience, we're saying it's all about delivering value to that user, focusing on what they want, what they need, what their goals are, and making sure those are all met inside the product. So this is paying extra close attention to usability as a whole, breaking down any personas that use the app and figuring out what their workflows are, actually talking to those people, doing user research, and then understanding their workflows and what they need to accomplish. And even like the content of the copywriting of the app affects the user experience. If the language doesn't make sense to people, that's not good. If they press on a button and it does something that they're not expecting to do, it's because the content or the copywriting doesn't align with kind of their mental model of it. And finally, the user experience design doesn't really stand alone on its own. It's kind of another layer of considerations on top of the user interface. So it's really impossible to be one without the other. So I'm not much of a smart home kind of guy. I don't particularly like talking to my devices or trying to automate everything in my life, but I made an exception when I moved into this old apartment that didn't have any overhead lighting, and none of the light switches really mapped up with the electrical outlets on the wall. So every time I came home at night when it was dark, I had to go around to each individual lamp and turn them on just so I could see. Minor pain, but it annoyed me. So I went out and I got these Philips Hue smart bulbs, which are essentially just light bulbs you can control with your phone. But what was really cool is they had all these routines pre-built into the app that kind of surprised me. So if you leave your house, you can have your lights turn off automatically. When you come home and it's after sunset, you can have them turn on right before you walk in the door. So it really fits like seamlessly into your life, and they're anticipating your workflows, they're anticipating your use cases. The designers really know their audience and they know what people are going to do with this technology, which makes it a great user experience. But saying your product is easy to use is like a chef saying her food is edible. Usability and accomplishing user goals are kind of table stakes these days in digital products. So if you don't really do those things right, you don't really have a foot in the door. So if beautiful, usable products are kind of expected today in modern digital products, then what does it take for design to be a differentiator? In a sense, the product is really the vehicle for the business to succeed. So for this to happen, a designer needs to incorporate solving those business goals and challenges into every single design decision that they make. So product design is really focusing heavily on the business goals as well as those user goals. So what are some of these business goals? Things like adoption, so how easy do we make it to get in the door? Do they have to talk to a sales rep, or can they try it out right away? Conversion, how do we get them to dig in a little bit deeper? Retention, so how do we make sure they don't abandon us? How do we keep consistently delivering value to those users? And shareability, how likely is someone to share it with one of their friends? And what makes a product-focused designer different is that these are the lenses that they're looking at every new design through. It's not just like a marketer taking another pass at some wireframes. These goals are part of the conversation from the beginning. And design teams that focus on these product design philosophies are the ones working on the tools that we are actually using every day. Everyone knows Slack. Slack's not an incredibly innovative product from a concept, but Slack has figured out ways to innovate in other ways. It's a workplace communication tool. Those have been around forever, but they're killing it. It's a B2B tool, so that means that they sell to organizations and companies, not necessarily the users that are in it every day. But it's so much fun to use, and it's easy to onboard, and you can try it out immediately with a free trial. Tell your friends about it, that they got to the point where their users are essentially their salespeople for them. They're the ones going around to their bosses saying, hey, we need to buy Slack, we need a paid plan, or telling their friends to get on so they can communicate with them. And that's really all possible because adoption and retention and shareability were on top of mind of the product designers from the beginning at Slack. So all three of these skills are really important to designers of digital products, but it's also important for us as designers to know kind of when to flex each of these design muscles. So let's say you're at a large kind of sales-driven organization that's iterating on features. Your team probably already has a design system in place, so you don't really have to worry about fonts or layouts or responsiveness or style guides. It's already taken care of. You might not be able to touch the copywriting because that goes through marketing and legal, and all of the sales and customer success teams handle the onboarding of new customers, so you don't really have to worry about it being kind of a turnkey self-service solution. So everything on that product side is out. And I want to emphasize that like the bold is maybe something that they might spend a little more time on or emphasize a little more, but the things that aren't bold are still very important and need to be taken care of. Maybe you're at a medium-sized SaaS company that's really optimizing for growth. Maybe your company has found some product market fit. You're ready to go into a new customer base. So your job as a designer might be coming up with like a pixel perfect style guide to equip both the design and engineering team to start moving fast once that growth happens. You might also need to start emphasizing easy onboarding and adoption for those customers who want to try the product without having to talk to a sales rep, because no one wants to do that. Or maybe you're at a small kind of early stage scrappy startup building out an MVP. Maybe you're using a component library that's common like material design, so you don't have to make all those decisions, and you can start to focus on figuring out the right workflows and making sure that it's usable to make sure that your product's going in the right path. You probably want to ship something and ship something really fast. So if you went up to your PM and asked for permission to make a three-month research plan and time to build out a design style, they would probably laugh in your face. So to kind of recap, there's a lot of skills and tools out there that we designers like to pull from, and it's important to know kind of the common language that surrounds all of them. But most importantly, it's important to know that different companies in different stages of their life cycle require different design strategies. So you really need to know your company, your team, and your business goals to know what design skills to prioritize. Thank you.